And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host and author, Sara DiVello, here to host Mystery Monday. And because Mondays can be murder, we're going to make them a little less painful for you. Tonight, I am super excited to introduce to you Lev A.C. Rosen, who's here to give us the inside scoop on his brand new book, The Bell in the Fog. And we have signed copies tonight. I'm so excited. Lev, tell us about this book.
Hi, thank you for having me. And it's so great to see you again after our chat at the Boston Book Festival, which was so much fun. And I'm so thrilled always to do anything with Murder by the Book, one of my favorite bookstores. Every time I go there, it's like, oh, it's such a special place.
I heard it's your top favorite in the whole world. That's what I heard.
Oh, well, I'm not playing that game. I'll get in trouble. But it is definitely a top favorite, as is every other independent bookstore ever. So yeah, Bell in the Fog. I should talk about that. Yes, Bell in the Fog is the follow-up to Lavender House, and it is another mystery that takes place in 1952 San Francisco. The protagonist of Lavender House, Evander Andy Mills, has decided to set up shop as a private detective over the Ruby, which is the most welcoming gay club in San Francisco. And Andy himself is queer, and he is trying to essentially be a detective for the queer community and also make up for his time as a cop and the ways that he was part of the system that oppressed his own community, even while knowing he was gay. And, he's trying to get business. He has a deal with the owner, Elsie, of the bar, Elsie, who's a friend, that he will give her a percentage of his earnings. But he isn't bringing in many clients, and the clients he is bringing in, he doesn't love. And he feels like it's only a matter of time before Elsie figures out that this has all been a terrible idea and kicks him out, and he doesn't want that. So he's pretty desperate for work and for the community to accept him, which will lead to more work. And one day he goes into his office, and there, sitting, waiting for him as a client, is an ex from several years ago who he thought had mysteriously vanished and possibly been taken in for being queer in the Navy in World War II, just post-war. And there's a lot of animosity there, but Andy needs the money. He needs the case, so he takes it. And it's a blackmail case that leads him all around the gay bars of San Francisco at the time, all of which are based on actual historical San Francisco gay bars. And I feel like going more than that gets into spoiler territory, but there's a mystery, and maybe he solves it.
Ooh, well, I can't wait to get all the delicious details from you, Lev, because I love me some blackmail. I love PIs and procedurals. So the chance to put on my detective hat and get to solve the mystery, or try to solve the mystery myself. So I can't wait to talk to you about all the details. And I love queer history. So we have so much to talk about, and I can't wait to get into every delicious detail. First, I just want to welcome everyone. We are broadcasting live to 6 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube. So, hey, mystery and thriller loving friends, no matter where you're watching from, you're in the right place. It is the right time. It is a Mystery Monday. So get your questions going in the comments, and I will get them right over to Lev. Renee, welcome to the conversation, saying, hi, Sara and Lev from Southeast Florida. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. Thanks, Renee. I hope you had a great weekend too, a great Thanksgiving weekend too. Renee adds that she thought Lavender House was excellent. Yay. Well, good news, Renee, because we've got some more Andy Mills for you, and we have signed copy thanks to my partner in crime, Murder by the Book. So I am going to pop that link into the comments. So no matter where you're watching from, friends, whether it's Facebook or YouTube, you can click this link and order a signed copy. And need I remind you that signed copies make the very best holiday gifts for yourself or others. So I say treat yourself and get a signed copy of The Bell in the Fog. Here is that link. Samantha, welcome to the conversation. She said, I just finished reading The Bell in the Fog yesterday. I am so glad I heard about this chat. Samantha, we're so glad you're here. Let us know if you have any questions for the author himself. Renee wants to know, can The Bell in the Fog be read as a standalone?
Yes, my editor made me work very hard to ensure that it could. She was like, well, some people might pick it up without having read Lavender House. And I was genuinely shocked by that piece of information. I am someone who will always be like, well, I have to start at the beginning. So it's time to like find that book from the library and, read one, then two. But apparently some people do, start in the middle of series. I can't judge. I dog your pages. My editor worked very hard with me to make sure you can pick it up right from the start, and you don't need to have read Lavender House, hopefully. Although reading Lavender House obviously makes the experience better.
That must be really hard, Lev, to both write a book that people can jump right in on. Who the hell is this Andy Evander Mills guy? But also your stans who've been with you since book one, who are like, we know Andy, we know his history, we know this guy. Get right into it. How do you do that? Bring everybody along, but not bore. How do you balance it?
I genuinely have no idea, to the point where I feel like I should correct the thing that just popped up. I didn't work very hard. My editor worked very hard to be like, Lev, we have to explain this. Make sure that this is explained here, not too much here. Like, it was very sort of hand-holding for essentially the first chapter in terms of getting in that exposition. And I'm internally grateful to her. But yeah, no, it was a weird experience. And now writing the third one and having to do that again, it's very sort of like, okay, I want to explain things, but I don't want to over explain things. I want to make sure. And the best advice she gave me, actually, this correct. The best advice that she gave me was, it's not important. The facts of the previous books aren't what's important. It's more about the feeling and the relationships from the previous books that are important. So it wasn't so much about saying, I solved the following mystery and I solved the previous mystery in the following way. It was, because of this book, here's my relationship to so-and-so. Here's what my relationship is.
That is so interesting, Lev. Thank you for letting us know that both, how you balance that and bringing people along, but not, losing people who are new here. So this is really helpful. Robin, welcome to the conversation. We're so happy you're here. Renee saying that is so great. Robin says, so great, so glad you enjoyed Lavender. Yes, exactly. So we have people who have enjoyed Lavender House, people who haven't read it. Renee saying, Lev, that must have been so difficult. She needs to read from book one of the series too. Renee, preach. I mean, yeah. I am nothing if not thorough. We got to go back up. Robin saying she is team read them all too. Okay, we're all like-minded.
See, I'm going to go back to my editor and be like, I don't need to explain anything ever again. Only people read from the start.
You just write on page one, make sure you've read all 36 books before this.
Well, isn't that what the little opening thing where it says previous books in the series is for?
I didn't actually know. I thought the other were just showing off. I have no idea. Renee wants to know, will there be more Andy Mills books in this series? Lev, can you tell us anything?
Yeah, there are at least 2 more. I'm hoping for more, but the third book will be out next fall and the fourth the fall after that, barring anything bad happening. And
Can you tell us anything about them, Lev?
Yeah, the third one I'm in edits on now, and I can tell you the title. I've been saying a bunch of titles because originally my editor okayed one title, but then marketing wanted it changed. So there is now a title that, as far as I know, everyone has signed off on, and it is Rough Pages. And it is about the book community, the gay book community of San Francisco in the 50s. There are these things called book services, which is sort of like, what we think of as being book crates now. You'd sign up and they'd send you books, book a month usually. And there were services that were specifically gay books, because there were a lot of gay books in the 50s. We don't talk about this anymore. We forgotten that history. And the thing is, though, that while publishing those books was not illegal, sending them through the mail in some cases counted as distributing, inappropriate materials. And so therefore did become illegal. There were one book, in the post office went after them. They sued one gay book service. Yeah, and someone almost ended up going to jail for it and ended up having to pay a fine. So there's already some inherent legality issues to just sending gay books through the mail. So I wanted to explore that, and then also the mafia.
Ooh, so wow, and also the mafia, of course, obviously. Oh my goodness. I think I'm just always fascinated when the mail gets involved, because that's how they got Capone, and not just Capone, but many other wrongdoers who had successfully evaded the law would get nailed on those federal mail fraud, defrauding the mails. Charges. So
the postal service.
this is my jam. So I am here for it. So tell us, let's pause there and talk about your research, because I had no idea that this about this mail service issue charges that you're going to address in Rough Pages. By the way, love the title. Tell us about how did you stumble across this mail thing?
I try to read a lot of queer history, and that one I learned about. There was a great article in the New Yorker, but I used that for research. But I actually had known a little about it from another great book, and I keep all my research books behind me, so I can always do this. Aha! Buying Gay by David Johnson, which is a book on the history of the way that things were sold to queer people, and queerness was used as a sales tool. And it's really fascinating. There's a lot of good stuff in here that I'm hoping to be able to use in lots of books. Yeah, it's so interesting. I have a lot of these queer research books, and if you ever zoom in on the shelf behind me, you'll be able to see essentially, maybe predict what's coming up next.
Ooh, yes. And I'm going to be investing in my binoculars right after this. Hold on, I'm going to get a Cyber Monday deal and some really strong binoculars, and then randomly going to be showing up outside your apartment. Renee saying, I guess Florida doesn't permit this series in school libraries. Renee sharing that she is based in Southeast Florida. Renee, yeah, I think we're all really distressed about the book banning that is happening. And she's saying she can't believe the mafia was also against queer book issues.
The mafia was not necessarily against it. The mafia was about, making money off whatever it could. And that meant blackmail, extortion, which was easy against gay people.
So, Lev, have your books been banned in Florida? Do you know?
One of my YA books, Jack of Hearts and Other Parts, is the 23rd most banned book in the country, according to CBS. But it's a YA book. The banning tends to go after YA stuff more than adult stuff these days. But writing Rough Pages and having a banned book and getting these Google notifications on a regular basis about where it's been banned now. And there was one recently where the school board decided not to ban it, but the superintendent of schools stepped in to ban it. So I keep getting, So it's interesting to be in that situation where I'm writing about the ways queer books were treated in the past and seeing that unfold right now. And certainly there are echoes, but it's also kind of weirdly reassuring, because I write about this queer book community in the 50s and these book services, and there were lots of them, and there are all these gay books, and people really found themselves even as these books were banned. And we got through it and the books were not as banned anymore. And so, things come in cycles, and sometimes that can be really depressing because you're like, we'll never learn, we're going to go through it again. But sometimes it can be really inspiring because you see how, if you look at the history, you can see how people found each other despite that in the past. You see how we survive and thrive even under these circumstances, and it gives you hope when you're looking at dark times.
Lev, I love that. I love that because I think there's another dangerous trend right now, which is to ignore history or want to turn away from history or want to whitewash history, and not look at the really painful parts. But I feel like if we don't look at those painful parts in a really honest way, we're never going to do better, and we must do better going forward. But I love your more positive spin of looking at this as a map and as inspiration for how we as humans survive and thrive no matter what. What a beautiful, empowering, positive thing. Thank you so much for that. Yes. Okay. We have so many questions going on, so we're going to get right into them. Okay. Let's start with Samantha. She said, I love that you talked about transferring the feeling of the book. My favorite thing about this book was the vibe of 1950s queer San Francisco. It has such a vibrant atmosphere. Samantha, well said. Lev, talk about how you immerse yourself in that and then brought it forth onto the page so successfully.
I think a lot of it is about watching the old movies. I love the old movies. The whole reason I like write books is because the old movies. Yeah, Bogart and Bacall, Big Sleep, favorite movie. And so that immediately, and being able to summon that up because I've seen it so many times and I've seen these movies, like being able to sort of conjure it up pretty easily is part of the vibe. And then the other part is about sort of, I was just talking about this to a book group. There are a couple things. One is going on Facebook and they have these sort of remember when groups, and people post all these photos of San Francisco in the 50s. And I look at those photos and that gives me a vibe right away. And then I also love going through old magazines. I have a huge collection of magazines from the 50s, and we're talking Time, interior design magazines, all of these. And I love flipping through those. And that immediately gives you a sense of what it was like in the 50s or what people wanted it to be like, which is close. And that helps me write that lushness.
Ooh, yes, exactly. Because when I was researching my book, when I was researching the 1920s, I was at first just reading the articles about the case that I was researching, and then I talked to a professor at Boston College who studies how the police are portrayed in the media in the 1920s, and he said, "You're not just reading the articles, are you?" And I was like, yes. And he said, no, you have to zoom out and look at the ads and look at the fashion and look at the
ads are
sales, look at the furniture.
good.
So good. And that's how you get in there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was missing it. So then I had to go back and start again. And that's how you immerse yourself in the lushness. So I love knowing that you also were going through these magazines and that yielded this lushness. That's such a great thing. Renee's wondering if you could talk more about your research. So the magazines, the movies, the queer history. Anything particular you did for either of the? Could you talk about first Lavender House and then Belle in the Fog?
Yeah. So the research, I have one book that's like my Bible for all these.
Which is, tell us.
Yeah, Wide Open Town by Nan Alamilla Boyd, which is a history of queer San Francisco up until 1965. So it really was one of the first things that let me dive in and be let's see what this place was like. Let's see what the queer community was like. So this is always a key text for me. And I thank her, even though I've never met her, we've never spoken, never emailed. I thank her at the back of every book, which I hope she does not, find horrifying. And so this was a key text. And then also for Lavender House, a lot of old magazines, but Lavender House didn't require too much research. There were a few things, he goes into San Francisco, he goes to a party the mayor's wife is throwing, a fundraiser at one point. And so I had to find a nice ballroom and know what the mayor's wife looked like. But that was easy enough to find through Google. For the second book, with again, wide open town, huge influence there, especially with all the gay clubs. But the other part of it is the gay community in the armed services in World War II. And that, my key text was Coming Out Under Fire by Alan Berube, which is all about, the queer people in the armed services in World War II. And this is like such an eye-opener. And there is a documentary, but the documentary was made sort of to try to stop the passing of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And so it's very, it has more of a specific point to it. And so it only tells a little bit of the story. This is much more comprehensive, and it like shows the ups and downs, and like, it has stories, lots of primary sources of letters from queer men in the armed services. And it's stuff like, yes, some people got sent to asylums, but in the military asylums, they often created communities. And then some people were fully just like having sex on their ships, and the captain knew about it, and like was just like, as long as you're good sailors, I don't care. Like, as long as you're doing your part. And then some people would immediately throw them in the brig. It really varied. And the military itself didn't super know what was going on until towards the end of the war. And that's when they were like, all of a sudden putting out these little movies about like what to do if a homosexual approaches you. And like, sending and using their intelligence services to start watching people they thought were queer. And it becomes really dark and scary, people being brought in front of tribunals and forced to name names. And that's the Lavender Scare and the beginning of the Lavender Scare. But what really caused the Lavender Scare is the draft, because during the draft, all these people, all these men especially, you're the one gay guy in your small town. You're not going to have a community. You're drafted with a bunch of other one gay guys in your small town. You all end up in this, military, Navy training camp, whatever. You're going to have a community all of a sudden. You're going to find each other. And that created a queer community that, drew more attention, which resulted in the Lavender Scare, trying to crack down on it. So it's an interesting thing. Everything comes in cycles.
Thank you so much for this history lesson, Lev. This is so fascinating, and a chapter of American history and American military history I had no idea about. And my sister actually serves in the Army, so I just am so fascinated by this. I absolutely love it.
Great story about the women in the military is that, oh God, I've forgotten everyone's name. But essentially it was brought to the head of the military's attention that there were a lot of queer people in the military, and he was like, oh God, we got to do something about that. And he turned to the woman who was in charge of women in the military and was like, can you get me a list of everyone who you think is queer in the military, all the women? And she said, I can't.
You are so funny, Sarah. I am funny. Thank you, Renee. I'm the funniest. Let's get into, okay, Renee wants to know, did you come up with the titles of your books, or did someone else or your editor? And I think, did you so tell us about Lavender House, Belle in the Fog, and then I think you referenced something about Rough Pages. Tell us the story of that one as well.
Yeah, so Lavender House and the Belle in the Fog, I came up with those titles. They were approved by everything. Everyone's good. So that was me, and everyone signed off on it. The third book, my original title was A Bad Story. And my editor liked that, but then marketing weighed in and felt it didn't line up with the other two because it lacked a sensory detail. So lavender is a smell, a bell is a sound, so it didn't have that sort of evocativeness. It was more sort of duh. They said it sounded a little YA to them, which I don't agree with, but I understand what they're coming for. And the idea of a sensory detail being missing, I liked. So I was like, okay, then, and I immediately was like, well, then we should call it Rough Pages. And I tried thinking of other ones too. I came up with something else.
Wait, what was the working title of?
A Bad Story.
A Bad Story. Okay.
Yeah. And Rough Pages got signed off on. But the other one was Paper Cuts, which I thought was sort of a sensory thing because you feel about it, but it also feels a little domestic. It doesn't necessarily feel like a mystery. So I decided that wasn't my favorite. And I proposed Rough Pages, and everyone signed off on it. So Rough Pages.
Okay, so we have Lavender House, a smell, The Bell in the Fog, a sound, Rough Pages, a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got to go through Taste and Sight. That takes us to 5. But then
Yeah,
we already have 2 books in the pipeline. So then are we going to cycle through back to Smell?
I don't know. I don't know what the plan is. The working title for book 4 is The Long Ride. I don't know what they're gonna. I don't know. I'm gonna try to keep that. We'll see how they feel about it.
Oh my gosh! Well, now I feel like I like going through the
long ride of a long road or something. What's the word for when it's a really hot day and everything? You look out over the horizon and it shimmers slightly.
Oh yes. I don't know. We're just the heat is literally shimmering.
Yeah, that would be the thing I would want to evoke Sight for the 4th one, I think.
Ooh. Okay. Well, I
should probably learn the name of it.
Exactly. Renee's wondering, Lev, where did you grow up? Tell us about that.
Born and raised New Yorker.
How do you think that's impacted your writing, if at all?
I don't know what the suburbs are like.
Renee says it's amazing that you came up with those first 2 titles. Yes, and they loved them and approved them. I totally agree, Renee. That's so cool. She's proposing. What about a smelly story? Yeah, exactly. A stink in Soho.
Smell thing, right?
Exactly. There's we go through sight, we go through touch, we got a lot. Oh, sight as a sense. Yeah, we've got so much. Speaking of senses, let's talk about this. Speaking of senses, let's talk about Publishers Weekly, a review which calls this gripping. See how I did that? See how I segued right in there?
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
Thank you. They rave that Rosen's candid portrayal of the casual cruelties perpetrated on queer people in the 1950s provides a novel and edifying foundation for a traditional mystery. Readers will be ready for the next Mills adventure as soon as this one ends. I had a segue, I had to take it, but that is high praise because I think one of the challenges when you're writing about cruelty and when you're writing about something that is so blatantly unfair is not to be overly dramatic because it actually warrants you want, or at least I want to, go on and on about it. But I liked how they honed in on how you resisted that temptation, and in your treatment actually conveyed it more effectively. I really liked how they honed in on that. So congratulations.
Thank you.
On that. Lev, any advice? Everybody, Lev taught writing for 10 years. So Lev, either in your experience,
just on a break.
What?
In my mind, I still do it. I still teach writing. I'm just on a break.
So as a writing teacher and an author, any advice on that, on dealing with these weighty topics in a way that is so effective?
I think a great way, it's hard, especially when you're talking about historical stuff, because there's a part of you that really wants to educate.
Yes.
And part of me wonders every time if I educated too much and it's distracting. And I'm very lucky. I have a great editor who knows how to sort of be like, this is too much. This is getting pedantic. And be like, maybe this information should go here in a more casual way. And so that is my best advice, is have a good editor. I think that it's important to always follow the character more than the history, more than the story, because the character is trying to achieve something, is always going for something, solve a mystery in this case. The genre makes it a pretty easy setup. And so what information is key to solving that mystery for that character? What do they have to go back over? What bits of history do they have to remember or reflect on? And that is what lets you get that history in ways that hopefully feel natural. So I still don't know if I do it perfectly well. But it's a really difficult thing to balance.
It really, really is. Renee wants to know, where do you teach writing, Lev?
Gotham Writers. It's a postgraduate creative writing school in New York City.
Excellent. I want to also talk about this review from Book Page, talking about your writing of an atmospheric novel. Again, harkening back to that, your rendering of such a lush and evocative. I'm going to pop this up so we can all read it together. They say, Book Page says, the result is
blush this whole time.
the result is an atmospheric historical novel, as well as a gritty noir mystery that will thrill both readers who already love Andy Mills and those meeting him for the first time. I loved that as well, speaking to your ability to, as we started this interview, both bring your stands along and introduce new fans to Andy. Y'all, we are out of time. Time flies when you're having so much fun. So here again is that link to order your signed copy of The Bell and the Fog. So no matter where you're watching from, grab your Facebook or YouTube, grab your copy right here. And again, a perfect a signed book makes such a perfect holiday gift for yourself or the mystery and thriller lover in your life. So the good folks at Murder by the Book will ship this out to you tomorrow, no matter where you are in the country or beyond. So here is that. Here's that link, Facebook or YouTube. Click and grab it. Oh, last question from Renee. So we're talking about your reviews. Love, do you read your own reviews?
I read the ones I'm sent by my publicists. I don't like lurk on Goodreads or anything. That I think is a path to madness. But the major ones, especially the ones my publicists send me, I will read those.
Thank you for that answer. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for joining us on Mystery Monday. I hope we're getting your week off to a killer start. I'll be back at the top of the hour with Anna Petoniak and the inside scoop on the Helsinki affair. So grab a drink, grab a snack, and get back here at the top of the hour. Stay with me. It is Mystery Monday. I'll be right back.